Best of r/malicious compliance episode 15. This happened several years ago, early internet days. I was around 16 or so, and my mom was going back to college to get a degree. One Saturday morning she said that one of her classmates was coming over for a study session. No big deal, I was in my room studying, for a college level AP course, anyway, so I didn't really pay much attention. Cue arrival of classmate, a 40-something lady, with a 6-year-old girl in tow. I didn't realize that until I opened the door for them and invited them in. My mom immediately gushes over the kid and suddenly I'm being volunteered to watch her while they study, to say nothing of the fact that I have my own studying to do. Kid's mom is perfectly happy to scoot the kid my way without so much as a "would you mind?" or a "thank you." I later discover that this was planned all along and my mom purposefully didn't tell me because she knew I'd refuse. Fortunately for me, the girl is really sweet and well behaved, but I have nothing, absolutely nothing that would remotely interest a 6-year-old. My mother tells me we can just listen to music in my room or whatever. Now, bear in mind that every single CD one owned was probably tagged explicit lyrics and she knew this. I said, "Are you sure you want a 6-year-old listening to Pan?" "Yes, just go and watch her." "Ooh, okay." Off we skip to my room. Here's where the malicious compliance starts. Now, I'm a chronic nibbler when I'm studying. I had a big Ziploc bag of candy on my desk. Kid immediately spots the candy and politely asks if she can have some. Cue my most devious Grinch smile. I was told to watch her, so I'm going to watch her eat this bag of candy. Imagine, if you will, a 6-year-old girl and a 16-year-old girl listening to stuff like Pantera and Tool and chowing down on candy. After our respective parents' 2-hour wine and bitch session, study session, mom came to fetch kiddo. By this point, the sugar high was starting to take effect. I know, it's not real, but damn, this kid got super hyper. Kid starts zooming down the stairs and channeling her inner cat at 3 barreling through the hallway. Her mom has to strap her into the car and it looked something like a human trying to hold onto a buttered, live, electric eel. As my mom is watching them leave, I spy her glaring at me out of the corner of her eye. "What did you do to that poor child?" "Oh, I just gave her some candy and we listened to Pantera." "You what?" "I tried to tell you but you said you didn't care, just to go watch her." The sudden realization of a 6-year-old hyped up on sugar and singing Good Friends and a bottle of pill shits my mom like a ton of bricks. She wants to say something but sounds like a rusty old engine trying to start. She doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't you have some bop or something a little more kid-friendly in your collection?" Blink. Well, if you had told me beforehand, I probably could have borrowed something from a friend, or went and rented a cartoon movie or something, but you just sprang it on me, so I made do with what I had. Shrug. There really was nothing she could say, but you can bet she never asked me to babysit again. Thank you. Next. Obligatory apologies. I'm on mobile. English isn't my first language, yada yada. Let's just get on with the story. TL. Doctor at the end. This story happened today, like half an hour ago. I'm gonna include some backstory first so this story would make more sense. I live in a neighborhood where everyone has a gate on their front yard. All houses are facing the main street and it's not unusual for people to approach the gates to ask for directions or to try and sell you some MLM shit. I am very prone to nosebleeds. As soon as I get the slightest cold and my nose gets just slightly irritated, it starts bleeding, which is annoying in on itself. So today, while I was out in my yard hanging the laundry out to dry, my nose started bleeding. So I went and stuck a sheet of rolled up toilet paper up my nostril to stop the flow, and went out again to continue doing my chore. As I was hanging the laundry, a boy who was maybe 13 or 14, not sure but was definitely younger than me, approached my gate. I thought that we came here, like most people, to ask for directions or to try and sell me something, but it turned out very different. "Hello, gorgeous," he said cheerfully. Of course I was annoyed by this, so I just looked at him for a second without responding and went back to doing my thing. "What are you doing?" Another attempt at initiating a conversation. "Isn't it obvious?" I responded, getting more annoyed by him, but I don't like confrontation, so I just hoped he'd get the hint and go away. "Boy, was I wrong. Why is that thing up your nose?" "Okay, bro, Now you're seriously getting annoying. And what do you think? I replied in a more annoyed tone, since I was seriously getting pissed at this point. You should take it out, you'd look prettier. Okay, what the fuck? Seriously, you'd look prettier? Is that seriously what you say to someone whose fucking nose is bleeding? Well, since he was so convinced that I'd look prettier without the thing that's preventing me from bleeding out, I decided to show it to him just how pretty I can be. I removed my nose tampon, and lo and behold, my nose started bleeding immediately. Blood was dripping down from my nose onto my chin, and thank God it didn't end up on my clothes. He looked fucking terrified, which was a good thing. He tried to apologize or some shit, but I quickly rushed inside so I could clean myself up a little. By the time I cleaned up and changed my nose tampon, he was gone, presumably because he was so traumatized by the sight of my bleeding face. He was gone, my nose was secured, and I could continue hanging the laundry in peace. D.T.L. Doctor, guy tried to catcall me in my own front yard, commented how I'd look prettier if I removed the nose tampon that was keeping my nose from bleeding out, and was promptly terrified when I did just that. Thank you. Next. I worked at a small, less than 100 people, video game studio about a decade ago. The studio did mostly console ports for larger publishers, and was notorious for severely underpaying its employees, and for screwing employees out of contracts so that the boss could make a profit, which he never shared with the company. When I became a manager, I tried to lobby for higher pay for my hourly workers, as the pay was $8 an hour, in 2011, and there were 3 guys on my team so broke they were literally living in their car in the parking lot. Boss, who was also co-owner of the studio, frankly said to me, I will continue to pay $8 an hour until I can't find anyone willing to work for $8 an hour. He was also notorious for bringing on unpaid interns, making them do the work of a full employee, promising them employment at the end of the internship, then breaking his promise. Boss was notorious for being a tightwad. He excluded hourly employees from company meals during OT, and would claim he was feeling generous when he would let the hourlies eat after all of the other employees had already cleared out 2/3 of the food and what was left was stale and congealed. At one point a contract with a larger company fell through, and boss man let half of the studio know about their layoffs by holding a meeting for them in the parking lot, and letting employees know that their jobs were gone, their passes to the doors were disabled, and they could expect their belongings mailed back to them in a week. He let some employees go back in to get things like wallets and car keys, but under security escort. Time comes for a release party for a game that got released before this mass layoff happened. Boss man emails out to the whole company letting everyone know how generous he's feeling, that he's going to allow all of the laid off employees on the project to come to the release party of the game they made. It was at a swanky place in town known for high-end cocktails, among other things. Boss man writes in his email invite that there was a $15/drink limit. What he meant to say was that each person at the party had a $15 limit for drinks for the night total. What the bar and everyone else interprets correctly as that there was a $15 per drink limit. Employees stifled giggles as they read the email invite that was also sent as instructional to the bar, and excitedly exchanged text messages and emails with the laid off employees. Boss man is also notorious for not showing up to his own parties until 2 hours in. Cue the night of the party. Everyone shows up bright and early, and as soon as the party officially starts everyone swarms the bar asking for the most expensive cocktails and liquor the bar had to offer. People were downing French 75s and Ramos gin fizzes and 35-year-old shots of Glenfiddich. Every employee and former employee was 5-6 fancy cocktails in and 3 sheets to the wind by the time boss man shows up. He saunters into cheers and pats on the back from laid off employees, who are so drunk by now that they probably saw 3 of him. He smiles and waves magnanimously, thinking the former and current employees were drowning their sorrows at their own cost. He wanders up to the bar to check in with the barkeep and see what the damage was so far. After 20 seconds of conversation, the smile from his face has disappeared completely and been replaced with a scowl. Words are spoken, barkeep disappears and comes back with manager. Tenser words are exchanged with the manager, who disappears into a back office and then returns with a piece of paper, presumably a copy of whatever contract boss man had made for the party. The bar and the drinking partiers were in the right, The company at the time was not financially able to handle the price of the drinks, and boss man was made to pay the cost out of his own pocket. Sadly, he was not able to afford a Porsche and a BMW that year. The company had to shutter about a year after this event. TL. Dr. Tightwad of a company owner treats employees like shit, lays off half the company, pretends to be magnanimous and lets laid off employees attend release party for game they created. Boss man doesn't read contract he made with the bar, and laid off employees take advantage of 2 hours all you can drink fancy cocktails at a high-end bar. Thank you. Next. Lots of backstory, so TL. Doctor at end. I've told a shorter version of the story in the comments, but it's probably worth its own post so we can all hate on her some more. I babysat, and elbasat, for the neighbors down the street who committed this malicious compliance, so I was there to hear the ranting as this whole mess went down. We'll call my neighbors Liz and Dave. They were nice folks who ran afoul of the homeowners association, HOA, when the busybody president, who lived next door to them, we'll call her Joan, got it in her rotted turnip for a brain that Liz and Dave had taken in an illegal renter. Renting out rooms was strictly against HOA policy. They had not rented out a room. Liz's elderly mother had moved in with them after breaking her hip and being unable to live alone anymore. Joan sent them a very threatening letter about their unlawful renter and how fines would accrue if the unlawful renter didn't vacate immediately. It was accompanied with a copy of that part of the bylaws and pictures of Liz's elderly mother taken through windows of their house. Creep alert. They wrote back that there was no renter and explained the situation. Joan did not believe that story and had the HOA lawyer start sending them certified letters about their continued violations with ever-increasing insane fines. This went over poorly. Liz and Dave got their own lawyer to fire back a cease and desist letter. After many increasingly aggressive back and forths, it all culminated in an association meeting where Liz, Dave and Liz's mother came in with it and birth certificates, and basically made Joan look like the pimple on the backside of humanity she was. They won, but Joan was furious, and swore she'd get them for something. Joan maintained until the day I left for college, last I knew of her, that Liz and Dave had forged those driver's licenses and birth certificates to keep their unlawful renter. Cut to the following full. Liz and Dave needed to repaint the house after making some siding repairs post-hurricane. They carefully checked the bylaws for approved paint colors and picked out a fairly bland shade of something between brown and tan. They gave the painters the color info listed in the bylaws to the painters and painting happened. Less than a week after their house was painted, they got another certified letter from the HOA lawyer stating their house was the wrong color. They fired back evidence they ordered exactly what was in the bylaws. Well, after many back and forths it turned out the approved color and the swatches on file with the board no longer matched because the manufacturer had changed the colors in their line slightly due to some kind of formula change. Their house was a few shades darker than it should have been. See, the bylaws listed the manufacturer color info for convenience, but the shades actually had to match the official swatches you could have theoretically borrowed from the board and gotten color matched. Nobody ever did that, but Joan was out for blood after the unlawful renter and forced them to have to repaint. Liz and Dave were taking no chances on the second try. They got the swatch set from the HOA. For some reason it made no distinction between approved accent colors. Most houses in the neighborhood had brightly colored doors, or house colors. They decided that if they had to paint their house a second time, Joan, the dog that caught the car, could live next to the most garish option they had. It was pumpkin orange. The painters asked multiple times if they were sure. They were very sure. You couldn't see the orange from inside, but you sure could from next door. Joan made many attempts to object to this, but it was within the letter of the HOA rules, and the house stayed orange until long after I moved away. TL. Dr. HOA president accuses a disabled, elderly mother of being an illegal tenant, involves lawyers and publicly embarrasses herself. In revenge, makes massive issue of a minor paint color error, winds up with a pumpkin orange house next door. Thank you. Next. Since cross-posting isn't allowed, here's a comment I delivered to a u/gambit post. Some minor edits done for grammar/spelling, and clarification. I was at a Remembrance Day parade just a couple weeks ago. Being not assigned to any formation, I was free to be in the peanut gallery of any parade I choose, provided I am still in dress uniform. I decided to go with one located in a mall. Just as I entered a mall, I walked past a gaggle of other military dudes and a gaggle fuck. One of them peels off from aforementioned gaggle fuck and makes a beeline towards me. As she was approaching, I noticed the officer ranks on her shoulders. Female officer, you know, looks at my rank, says my rank. We are still required to render a salute and give our respects to our betters when we see them. Me, snaps so smartly to attention that my boots cracked and flaked off some polish when I smashed my foot to the ground. Renders the crispest salute this crisp salute rendering member could deliver. Fires off loudly in machine gun mode the courtesy words I am required to give. MAAM, yes MAAM. I will fix my deficiency right away MAAM. How are you doing today MAAM? Female officer, returns my salute thank you, my rank. You may go now and make sure you pay your courtesies to your betters whenever you see them. Me, already bringing my salute down as soon as I saw the slightest twitch of her fingers indicating that her saluting hand is going down, and already turning to leave at the word go. I walked into the closest coffee shop, Starbucks, about 15 steps away and ordered a coffee to fill my right hand, and a bottle of water to fill my left hand. The barista, who was ex-military and gave me my stuff for free, asked me, "Dude, why were you yelling at that salute hungry cunt while you were saluting her? Were you getting jacked up or were you jacking her up?" Me, straight face, I was rendering courtesies owed to a superior officer. And was probably pointing her out to a potential sniper. Clarification, I actually knew the Starbucks dude from working with him when he was in. After chit-chatting for a bit, he did say that he noticed this chick I just saluted, stopping random military members and everyone she stopped just saluting and walking away. Since the Starbucks is soundproofed from outside noises, he couldn't understand what going on. Official rules for my country's armed forces is you only salute officers when both are in uniform and wearing a headdress, with your saluting hand unoccupied. The only exception is you don't salute in the field. You're supposed to salute everywhere else. Unofficial rule is you only salute officers in garrison. If you see an officer in a public place, doesn't matter if both are in uniform and have a headdress on, you just stick to a standard respectful greeting and maybe a head nod. Most officers would gently chide you if you salute them out in public. Once in a while, you'll get officers who get a thrill out of doing their grocery shopping, or just go out and about in full uniform outside of work hours and jack up any poor bastards of a lower rank than them, who happen to unfortunately have to appear in public wearing a uniform. Unspoken agreement amongst lower ranks and junior officers is that if someone is begging for a sniper check like that out in public, you give it to them. Since I didn't feel like screaming my throat off giving the required courtesy to every single one of them thirsty biatches, I took a page off We Were Soldiers and made sure both my hands are occupied. Thank you. Next, I posted this over on r/military stories and it was requested I put it here. Posting with more exposition and less military jargon. If you want to skip straight to the story, go ahead. The exposition. It may seem ironic, but water is the most tightly controlled resource on a Navy ship. Every bit used for eating, drinking, showering, launching planes, and in the steam power plants is controlled and monitored. This is because you can't just slam seawater through the nuclear reactors. Well, you can, but it will cost the government a few $100 million and probably land you in jail. Each carrier has 2 nuclear reactors, and the government is extremely protective of them. The operators are the most highly trained group of people in the Navy. Every year, every single reactor and operator undergoes a week of intensive inspections and drills from a crew sent by Washington, D.C., called an Operational Reactor Safety Exam, or S. The story. I am just a lowly E5 turning circles and launching planes, supervising the catapults. The year is mid-2000s, and Operation Iraqi Freedom is still in high gear. We get a new guy, and E6, on the ship, and he is just the best thing since sliced bread. Naturally, nobody can stand the ass. He does what he needs to do to be released to work, including getting fully trained on standing a watch in the Damaged Control Center aka DC Central. DC Central is the command center where all the ship-wide drills or actual catastrophes are managed. It's time for the ORS. To set the scene, it's about 2 a.m. The ship is the kind of quiet you only get in nurseries at nap time and the calm before the storm. The overhead speakers crackle into life. Reactor shut down. Reactor shut down. My watchstanders join me in the office just in time for the phone call. Catapult shop. Mr. D. Nealand. This is M. Masshole in DC Central. Reactor 1 shut down. Cross connect steam from 1 to 2. Drains from 2 to 1. Thank you. Next. Hi Reddit, this is just a simple yet funny story I felt I had to share. I am a 16-year-old living with my parents and I still love the absurdity of this because even my brothers started laughing at how dumb this was. I decided today I'm gonna help my mum cook my favorite pork chop and help set the table. My mum likes to cut them into strips so the pork can soak in its juices and makes it very tasty. So that we were setting up the table, putting the 4 bowls of rice. Dad was at work so it was me, my 2 brothers and my mum. Then my mum asked me, M.O.P. can you grab me a knife? Me, which one? A knife. I just realized how absurd that was. So in acts of malicious compliance, I gave her this kitchen knife that was like for cutting big cuts of meat and not like a steak knife. My little brother was giggling and realized where this was going. LB, while giggling, oh mum you're gonna love the knife OP just gave you. She turns around and sees I gave her a goddamn kitchen knife that wasn't intended for cutting cooked pork chop. M.O.P. not that knife. Me, while giggling, you didn't specify. You know what knife I'm talking about. Me, still snickering, no I don't. You didn't specify. I'm talking about the damn steak knife not this. Me, that's better. You finally specified. Realizing this is a joke and saying jokingly, oh shut up you. Still makes me laugh at the absurdity.